boy, we've got a female academy. How diverse.
How wonderful.
What I was thinking.
Okay, welcome everyone tonight to our December regularly scheduled meeting, Thursday, December the 10th. Welcome everyone in attendance. And as we all know, we're trying to be socially distanced and safe. And we've asked the people, the citizens attending are out in the hallway. The staff and the council are very well spread out in the room. And the meeting is being streamed on YouTube.
That's right, Mayor. Before we go down to our Pledge of Allegiance and our opening moment of silence, we've gotten guidance from the School of Government on social distancing and phone-in meetings and the requirements now. And the School of Government has determined us and sent communication to Jeff and Holly and myself that when we have a quasi-judicial hearing, like we will tonight, just in a few minutes, we can't phone in unless it's advertised and we give everybody, all the affected property owners have a chance to phone in because, you know, of the, it's like a court case almost where the council's acting as a judge, where you've got cross-examination and expert testimony and all that. So Mr. Bell is not here tonight. He's still recovering. He sends his best wishes. Because of that interpretation by the School of Government, Ms. Carter is not on the phone tonight. So we'll have to figure out something between now and January's meeting on how to make the get her in here somehow or get the betting better. And like the mayor said, we are being live streamed on YouTube, and I just wanted to get that on YouTube. I know some people said last week they couldn't hear when I spoke on YouTube. You could hear me, but they could not on YouTube Live. You will be able to hear now because of the phone regulations. So I just wanted to get that on the record, Mayor, before we got started. Thanks for letting me get that on. And
John, to clarify, nothing you said will preempt or have any bearing on our ability to conduct any item on the agenda tonight. Is that correct?
no, we still have a quorum, so we meet the requirements. When you go into the quasi-judicial hearing, the mayor will ask, they'll be sworn in. We're meeting the governor's mandate, and we're meeting the general statutes mandates for having a public meeting tonight.
And a different type of advertising or setup will alleviate this?
We're staffing and working through all that now. We've kind of skirted on it. Councils and commissions all over the state, as well as any authority that's required to have public meetings and public notification, are all working through the same guidance that we got from the School of Government yesterday.
If I may, Your Honor, the whole purpose of this is the unique nature is the quasi-judicial requires the evaluation of witnesses and the testimony that's provided, so it provides a wrinkle to it. All the steps that we're taking are to ensure that every action you take tonight is fully sustainable as a legal matter. So you are free to act on the evidence that you receive tonight.
Okay, thank you. I would encourage everyone in the room to speak into your microphone clearly. If you are speaking through your mask, that is somewhat muffling over the microphone. We did have a couple of issues last week. The telephone was not picked up very well, telephone conversations, and some of the other conversations were not clear. We had a microphone that was bad, so we hope and expect tonight to be a little better for the viewing public. If you will, at this point, stand and join me in a moment of silent meditation. I invite you to pray in any manner that you're comfortable, and we will follow that with a pledge of allegiance. Thank you. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the appointed time during our council meeting where the public is invited and encouraged to address the council. Is there anyone in the building tonight that would like to avail themselves of the public comment period to address the council on any items of city concern or city business? Having none come forward, we will move on to item 4, and I'll call on John Evans. And is your counterpart here?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay, Ms. Terry, good to have you here tonight.
Good to be here.
Step up to the microphone and brief us, please.
I'll start if that's okay, and then Kristen was going
Sure.
to have some comments as well. So, yes, sir, Mr. Mayor and council members, good evening. Thank you again for the opportunity to be before you to kind of let you know where the United Way campaign was this year in terms of our fundraising. And so, first of all, just want to recognize the committee members. So we have, of course, from the city manager's office, John Ogburn, Joanne Cockman, Jimmy Cagle from facilities, Pam Smith from the fire department, Doug Kemp and Kristen Terry, Tina Lee and myself from HR, City Hall, and Culture and Recreation Services, Captain Hanson from the police department, Jamie Wright from Public Services, Michelle Dawes from the wastewater plant, and Tracy Manus from the water plant. And so these were the same members who served last year, so we do have some good continuity on our campaign team. The campaign this year, as you may imagine, was a little bit different, just like so many things with the COVID-19 pandemic. Typically, we have about a dozen campaign meetings in various city facilities. Some of those are very large. So like, for instance, at Public Works, we typically have over 100 employees there together, you know, kind of shoulder to shoulder. That's, for obvious health reasons, that wasn't really a very good option this year. So we were, you know, kind of dealing with that, looking at different options for the campaign. Another option that we could have done, but no one on the campaign had any desire to do option B, which was to say, you know, because of the pandemic, we just weren't going to have a campaign, you know, because of our typical meetings. So we didn't do that option. But what we did was option C, which is called a rollover campaign that United Way had recommended that we do, and they've done it with other employers in the county. And so what that was is it gave all of the employees who made a donation last year just to be able to the chance to just be able to continue their donation for this year. And so they could make any adjustments that they wanted to. It was basically a simple form that they had to sign. We also had a lot of the 17 agencies had made video presentations. So we, you know, worked to get those out to anyone, you know, to be able to see that, you know, with some departments it's a little bit easier, like for the folks here at City Hall, it's a little bit easier to get that out than to, you know, like our water maintenance and grounds maintenance and those operations that are really more out in the field just 100% of the time, basically. But you know, we feel like, you know, trying to still get the word out would still help give us a successful campaign. So what we ended up with this year was still close to $28,000. I would like to be up here saying this was a record year like it was last year. We didn't quite make that, you know, at this point, but you know, we're you know, looking forward to forging ahead when hopefully that situation can allow us to have more of the in-person meetings. But we still feel like that number was successful, you know, because that's $28,000 almost that had we decided not to have the campaign, that those agencies would not have had access to. I'm going to let Kristen talk a little bit about some of the incentives and kind of how that was a little bit different this year. So,
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me here to talk about the United Way, and thank you for letting us do the fundraising again for the City of Asheboro employees. They really enjoy it, and we enjoy putting it on. I feel like we had a great outcome considering the situation that we couldn't have in-person meetings that everybody looks forward to. And we still had great incentives. We just changed some things about them. Instead of doing tickets for Carowinds or football games and different things like that we could do, we did local things to us. So what we did was $50 gift cards to Lowe's Foods, Food Line, and Aldi's, because everybody now still needs to buy groceries. And Aldi's, Chili's, Kickback Jacks, Taste of Asia, Simply Asian, and Magnolia 23 were some of the other local businesses that we did. We always do Walmart and Sheetz. We decided to do Lowe's Hardware this year because a lot of people are home, spending time doing home improvement. And Mr. Auburn came up with the great idea of Omaha Steaks. So I'm sure the people that won those were very pleased to get that. But we just want to say thank you for us doing the campaign again this year. I still feel like we had a good outcome, and next year we'll be back to doing in-person meetings. It'll be good again.
Kristen, I want to thank you and John for taking the leadership role in this and once again doing a great job. Thank you. Appreciate your dedication to United Way in the city of Asheboro. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Council, you have in front of you consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that you would like to remove for individual discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Burks. May I have a second? Second. Second, Mr. Swears. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Evans. Item 6A is I will open a quasi-judicial hearing on application RZ-CUP 20-11 to rezone property at 881 Curry Drive. Go right ahead, sir.
yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. And as this is a quasi-judicial hearing, this would be the time for anyone to be sworn or to give the oath who may wish to offer testimony. So I think there's maybe a lot
If there's
of
anyone in the audience, in the hallway that is planning to speak to this request, please come in and be sworn. Okay, is that it? All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This case is being filed by Amanda Hodiern, who is the attorney for SBT Real Estate Holdings, LLC, who is the applicant in this case. Property is located at 881 Curry Drive, and there are two requests with the property. The first is the rezoning request from conditional use general commercial to conditional use light industrial. And the second part of that is the conditional use permit for a major motor vehicle repair operation. There is one parcel identification number that's part of the request. The property is just over 5.5 acres and was previously an eating establishment many of you knew as K&W. So if we look at the very first map, you'll see the location of the property. It is along the north side of McDowell Road, the west side of I-73-74. It is at that interchange. It also has frontage on Lambert Drive to the west and then Curry Drive to the north. And so if Curry Drive, if you see the parcels that are zoned conditional use B2, that was part of a commercial subdivision that was developed in the late 90s. And so there was a conditional use permit for that entire project. This is just one small portion of that project that's subject to the conditional use permit request tonight. So if you look at the surrounding zoning, you have commercial across McDowell Road, some industrial on the parcel, just on that side of the road where Randolph Electric is, and then across the interstate from McDowell Road, you have some industrial, some commercial. Then off to the west, you have residential where you don't see that area highlighted. That is within Randolph County's zoning area. So taking a look at the rezoning map, it just shows you a closer view of the subject property and of the immediately adjoining parcel. I will note that we did, because of this project being at one time including the larger area, even though the immediately adjoining properties were the ones required to be notified, just to make sure anyone received notice who may need to be aware of this, we did include our mailings to have the properties in the original to be all the properties that were adjoining that original project along Curry Drive. So go to the next slide, you'll see the topography of the site. There is quite a drop-off from both McDowell Road and the interstate into the property. But then once you get onto the property itself, the part that's developed, it's fairly level. It's really the lowest point of the surrounding land uses. So basically everything is kind of higher in topography than this that's surrounding it. So as far as utilities, we have public water running along the three street frontages, McDowell, Lambert, and Curry. There is a private sewer pump station that serves the property as well. The aerial map shows you the property that's developed. So you have the former restaurant, the parking, and then some of the adjoining properties, the agricultural or the USDA office just to the north, and then the Staywell Rehabilitation Center also further up along Curry Drive to the north. This shows you a photograph from Curry Drive looking at the subject property. This is looking from McDowell Road, so you kind of see the grade from that location. This is the subject property from Lambert Drive off to the right. This is from I-73-74, so the subject property would be off to the left at this location. This would be looking northeast along Curry Drive. The subject property is off to the right. This would be looking southwest on Curry Drive. The subject property is off to the left. And so off to the right, you have a vacant parcel that's conditional use commercial, and then Lambert Drive there where you see the stop sign. This would be looking north along Lambert Drive. The subject property would be off to the right, and you see the residential uses as you're headed in that direction. And then finally, this is looking south on Lambert Drive. The subject property is off to the left. This is looking toward McDowell Road. So this property is within the city limits. It does receive city services, and as I mentioned, there is a sewer service via a privately maintained pump station. In terms of the road classification, we have Lambert Drive as a state-maintained collector street connecting McDowell Road to US 64. Curry Drive is a city-maintained street serving the subject property and the adjoining commercial property that you saw in the photos. I-73-74 is an interstate freeway, and I also mentioned that McDowell Road is a minor state-maintained thoroughfare. Of course, the previous use was a K&W cafeteria, which is an eating establishment, and that was part of that original commercial subdivision along Curry Drive. There's also a stream on the property. The NC Department of Environmental Quality would need to be contacted if there is any land activity that would impact the stream or its banks. The zoning ordinance, when we look at the description of the underlying I-1 district, it is to produce areas for manufacturing, processing, and assembly uses, commercial uses, distribution and servicing enterprises controlled by performance standards to limit the use of such uses on uses within the district and on adjacent districts. So this property is also in the employment center, has that designation by the land development plan. That is described as to integrate a mixture of commercial, office and institutional, industrial, and open space uses into the fabric of the community with ample sidewalks, street trees, on-street parking, public amenities, and open space. Of course, you are also reviewing the conditional use permit application for the motor vehicle repair. As stated, it is a part of the employment center by the LDP. It's in the southwest small area planning area, and the property is part of the primary growth area. Staff found a total of 6 goals and policies that we believe support the request. 2 that were negative toward the request, just acknowledging that there are steeper slopes on the property, and there is a residential use that's adjoining the property on part of it across Lambert Drive. If we look at the overall consistency with the land development plan, staff believes there are several factors that do support the request. The first being that employment center designation. That does include a mix of non-residential uses, and those include, of course, commercial, office, along with that industrial component. The Southwest Small Area Plan that the property's in talks about having those employment center uses accessible to I-73, 74, and the interchanges, and so that complies with that component of the plan. And we also have the conditional use permitting process. So, of course, council can impose any conditions on the use and the way the property develops to make it more compatible with the adjoining properties. Given that analysis on the rezoning, staff's recommendation was to approve, and the planning board also unanimously recommended approval, concurring with staff on the rezoning component. At this time, I'll move on to the conditional use permit analysis. The conditional use permit, of course, is for a motor vehicle repair use, which is for major work, and you have that definition there in your packets. The proposal is for an addition to the existing structure, and it includes it's 6 work bays, which would be proposed to be added to the side of the building facing away from Lambert Drive, headed toward the interstate from the existing K&W, kind of where that the current parking area is now. Just for the record, I'll briefly just read the definition of major automobile repair. It is any automotive repairs or servicing not listed under motor vehicle repair minor, and further, it is determined to be any structure in which machinery operated by mechanical power is installed, which is designed for making major repairs to motor vehicles, or where in making repairs to motor vehicles, the mechanical power employed in the operation of any machine or tool exceeds 3 horsepower, or total mechanical power provided or employed exceeds 15 horsepower. And we also have the definition of minor motor vehicle repair for reference. As you'll see, looking at the site plan, there is a second entrance from Curry Drive proposed. And so that will require a driveway permit from the city of Asheboro, since that is a city-maintained street. We did, as part of the review, we did forward the plan to NCDOT. While there's not a new curb cut on any of the state-maintained roads, we did want them to be aware of the the use, knowing that the traffic would be funneled onto the state road system. They did not indicate that any modifications or road improvements would be required for this use. So one other item you'll notice on the site plan is the applicant is proposing a sidewalk along Curry Drive. In an industrial district, the zoning ordinance doesn't specifically require this. It only requires sidewalks in an industrial district if it's along a thoroughfare that has curb and gutter. So the sidewalk that's being proposed along Curry Drive was being offered by the applicant over and above the general zoning ordinance requirements. As the Employment Center describes, part of their definition there is to have ample sidewalks, that is the intent of the Employment Center. So we feel that eliminating the sidewalk would likely be considered a modification of the permit, and that would require a new conditional use permit rehearing by the council. So I just wanted to just state that for the record, that when we look at different items that we see could be modifications, not having the sidewalk that's being offered could possibly be, but it is being offered as part of this application. Taking a look at the site plan, I think I've covered a lot of the items we were talking about. You see the addition with the 6 bays on the kind of the east side of the building, and then the second driveway, and that driveway is going away from Lambert on the kind of far eastern corner of the property. If you're looking at it, it'd be on the right. And then as far as landscaping, they are proposing to use the existing vegetation that's there. So that's had a couple of decades to grow and be more mature vegetation. So they're proposing to use that and supplement any plantings as required. So you also see there at your places you have a lighting plan. It's a little difficult to see on the slideshow, but I would just say the main point I'd want to emphasize there is that staff has reviewed that lighting plan. There's a certain intensity of light at the right-of-way there's a maximum just to ensure that there's not glare, that the lighting is basically angled downward, and so we believe the plan complies with city requirements as far as lighting. So building elevations, you can kind of see the appearance of the building. The north elevation, that would be facing Curry Drive. The south elevation facing McDowell Road. The east elevation facing the interstate, and then the west elevation facing Lambert Drive. So the main changes from the ground you're kind of looking at are along Curry Drive and McDowell Road, where that's the side of the building being added to. The applicant has provided some renderings as well. I think in their presentation they can get into those more specifically, but we have those. I'll just kind of flip through these. Okay. And as far as conditions, we'll get into those. There was a slide. apologize, that slide, looks like that got somehow off the slideshow, but I will just go.
Two.
Yes, sir. So I will certainly go over those at this time. The first condition that's proposed, the first three are by the applicant. So the very first condition is that the hours of operation shall be limited from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturdays. So if, it's kind of helpful to compare this condition with the existing conditional use permit that would have applied to K&W. The current conditional use permit does not specify any specific hours of operation. Condition B, trash pickup shall be limited to 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. The condition, as far as the hours, that is identical to the current conditional use permit with K&W, but the change is that the applicant is proposing eliminating trash pickup on Saturdays and Sundays. So that would not be, that would not occur on those 2 days. Third, parking lot sweeping shall be limited to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. So the times Monday through Saturday are identical. The change would be the current conditional use permit specifies that sweeping may occur on Sunday from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. So that would be eliminated as far as any sort of Sunday street sweeping. So the staff proposed conditions are item D, the applicant may use existing vegetation as indicated on the site plan. However, if any required vegetation is removed, additional plantings will be required in compliance with the applicable landscaping provisions of the zoning ordinance. So that's kind of envisioning if in the construction of the sidewalk, for instance, there may be a tree that would have to be removed for that, they would be replanting it to comply with our zoning requirements. There also, condition E, prior to the issuance of a zoning compliance permit, the applicant shall obtain a City of Asheboro driveway permit. And then item F, which is a standard condition that you see with any conditional use permit, prior to the issuance of a zoning compliance permit for the proposed use, the owner of the zoning lot shall properly execute and deliver to the zoning administrator for recordation in the office of the Randolph County Register of Deeds a memorandum of land use restrictions prepared by the city attorney for the purpose of placing notice of the conditions attached to this conditional use permit in the chain of title for the zoning lot. So just standard condition. I do apologize for the slide inadvertently getting deleted. So I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time if the city council has them.
Questions? Anybody?
Pretty straightforward so far.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir.
Okay, who was the first person who'd like to speak to this request, please?
Slides, or if there's any particular slide or visual that you like.
Great. Thank
I can
you.
do it.
Yeah, if we could go to the site plan, please. That'd be great. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Amanda Hodiern. My offices are at 804 Green Valley Road in Greensboro. I'm the attorney and representative tonight on behalf of SBT Real Estate Holdings, LLC. SBT is the entity that does have this property under contract for purchase with the intent of the development that you're hearing about this evening. With me tonight, I have Sally Thomas. She's the principal of SBT. I have with me David Boyling. He's our project manager from J.H. Batten. And I have Alan Hill, our engineer from Triad Design Group. And you'll hear from each of those folks later as we go through some evidence. As you've heard from Mr. Evans, our request before you this evening is a two-part item. We are requesting the rezoning and the companion conditional use permit. For a clear and efficient discussion, I'm going to do a lot like Mr. Evans did and walk through the rezoning first, and then we'll move on to the evidence presentment for the conditional use permit. So looking at the rezoning, as you've heard, we are requesting this rezoning to the conditional use light industrial district. And the reason for this is to facilitate my client's ability to complete an adaptive reuse of this property into an automotive repair facility that can service commercial vehicles. Mr. Evans very helpfully provided some definitions for us on the difference between minor and major, and the tipping point that's causing this request to be a major classification is the concept of being able to work on commercial vehicles as opposed to just passenger vehicles like you and I would drive. The conditional use component of our request, which we'll discuss later, would permit specifically the major automotive repair use that we've talked about, and that use only as per the site plan in front of you. So importantly, what that means is that all the other uses that you're familiar with that are allowed in your light industrial district would not be allowed here, and even our use would not be allowed in any material deviation from this site plan, much like the sidewalk discussion that Mr. Evans mentioned. If that was something we decided we didn't want to do, that would come back for a new conditional use permit. The same is true for all the other material aspects of this proposal. This property is currently developed with an 11,200 square foot restaurant building. This was the old K&W cafeteria. It went out of business earlier this year. And as you've heard tonight, it was part of a larger commercial subdivision that came about in the late 90s and created this swath of commercial uses and zonings here north of McDowell Road between Lambert Drive and the interstate corridor. My client's request is for only one of those properties. It's the 5.5 acre subject parcel that we're looking at. And however, even though we're changing one of those parcels, we have worked closely with staff. They've been very helpful in guiding us to emulate and keep in place as many of the conditions and aspects of that previous commercial scheme that have been in place for over 20 years and clearly are working pretty well. So we tried to change as little as possible when changing the designation on this particular parcel. That also helps us to keep a unified development scheme with everything else that's already occurred along Curry Drive. We believe this rezoning request is reasonable and in the public interest for a couple of key reasons. As you can see on the map, can we go back to the... That's good, thank you. As you can see on this map, the site does sit right beside your I-73-74 interstate. It has superior access to that interstate. It's right on an interchange. It's got a signalized intersection. And what this does is provide strong access and strong visibility to this site from your major travel corridor, not only for Asheboro, but for Randolph County and wider points. It's a tried and true development pattern and planning practice to place your commercial, more intense uses along your already intense travel corridors. It makes sense to frame something like a heavily used interstate with intense uses as opposed to residential uses. So this is right in keeping with that development practice. It also makes sense to place uses such as the one we are proposing along your travel corridors because it makes for an orderly and efficient travel pattern for your users. You've got folks who can come right off the interstate and get to this site with just a couple of turns without having to traverse and meander through any residential subdivisions or cross town and clog up your road network. From a user standpoint, that also makes this site really attractive for commercial users. This is a destination type use for my client, and it helps a lot that it has good visibility and good access for their would-be customers. Also want to emphasize the reuse and the reinvestment nature of this project. The previous use is completely ceased. The site is fully vacant. And being so large, over 11,000 square feet, it's not just any user that's going to come along and have a need for this type of property. It's the type of listing that doesn't tend to turn over quickly. So rather than this building continuing to sit vacant, this property continuing to be idle, this is an opportunity to reclaim that square footage, reclaim this property as a productive use in your community. It again becomes an employer. It again houses a business service to service the needs of your community, and of course, again, becomes a tax generator. Adaptive reuse is also an important concept in your growth management. When you reuse existing commercial sites, this prevents sprawl, because you're not going out looking for more green fields to newly develop, and it also makes the best use of your existing infrastructure. We've talked about the road network. There's also water right here at the site, as you've heard. There's sewer right here at the site. There's even a private pump station. So those are investments that the city and others have made here that can continue to be utilized and should be. Lastly, I want to focus on the compatibility of this request with your land development plan and growth strategy. The land use plan designation here is employment center, and it's also designated as a primary growth area. As contemplated under your plan, this is a location that's at an interchange of your interstate corridor, and that's where your plan calls to designate these employment centers. So indeed, that's exactly what we've got here. We've got a big employer right across the street with your hospital, and surrounding that, we also have lots of small-scale industrial users and hospital supporting type uses, like the nursing home just up Curry Drive from us. So what our proposed use would add to this already flourishing center is the creation of more than 20 full-time jobs here of a different nature and a different skill set than what's already represented in this center, thereby adding more thriving and vitality to this employment center. You've heard from your staff report from Mr. Evans that the determination is from staff that this request is supported by numerous policy goals from your land development plan. Mr. Evans went through those. The ones that were not supported, I think, are well curtailed. The steep slopes, you'll hear about later in our site plan, we're not getting into that area at all, making sure to protect that resource and that environmental feature. And as for the commercial to residential transition, we're taking a lot of steps to make that as compatible as possible and mitigate those impacts, which we'll get into here in a minute. Stepping into the conditional use permit, this is the part of the request that speaks specifically to our proposed use and our proposed site plan. As mentioned earlier, if approved, this specific plan is the only one that would be allowable on this property. If we wanted to do something different, we'd have to come back here. If we sold to a new buyer who wanted to do something different, they'd have to come back here. That restriction and control that the conditional use permit provides on this property is a very significant feature of the rezoning. They act together. It's a companion piece to give that zoning the rein in that it would require in a location like this. As you know, in order to approve a conditional use permit, you look at a 4-part test with 4 factors to consider. So I'd like to walk through that test now and look at the evidence for each of those 4 considerations. Number 1 is that the use will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located where proposed and developed according to the plan as submitted and approved. The first piece of evidence I'd like to discuss here, you've already heard. It's your staff's analysis. They did a very thorough and well-reasoned dive into this property. They worked with us to bring it along where it was deficient, to revise it, to make it the best proposal possible. And of course, the reason they do all that is the whole reason that you have development regulations and planning departments and a lot of your other departments here at the city. It is, of course, to ensure public safety and public welfare. So that is the job that was being done in this process that we've been in with your staff for the past couple of months. And I believe you've heard tonight on the record that the result of that process was a site plan that your staff did tell you they recommend approval of and does meet your ordinance. To look at some specific components of our site plan now and talk about that review process and how our plan evolved, talk about some of the approvals that we've gotten along the way, I'd like to call Alan Hill, our civil engineer, in to go through those items, please. If we could go back to the site plan for his discussion.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Alan Hill. I'm a registered professional engineer here in North Carolina and principal civil engineer at Triad Design Group, located at 4807 Coger Boulevard in Greensboro. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight, and just want to say, you know, repurposing a site that was once a restaurant with the parking, repurposing it to the use we're proposing tonight had a few challenges, but we worked very closely with your planning staff here in Asheboro. Did a great job. I think we went through maybe 4 iterations of submittal, site plan review, comments back, and then addressing those comments. So it's kind of been a team effort between Triad Design Group, J.H. Batten, Thomas Tire, and the city planning department to get to the plan that you see right now. This plan, as I said, it had a few challenges, but we feel like that we've developed a plan that not only meets the needs of the user, but also certainly meets all the requirements of your zoning ordinance. And just want to point out a couple of things. Mr. Evans did a great job kind of stealing my thunder and walking through all the site plan. Very much I appreciate that. But just want to touch on a couple of things. I guess things that sort of stand out as to changes that we're making to the site, just to make it more accessible, make the traffic flow better through the site for the customers that are coming in. First thing you see, the existing driveway that is there, we are widening that driveway. That driveway will be the primary entrance for the customers coming into the site, and we felt like we needed a little more room to get folks in and out of there. The other that jumps out at you is the addition of the driveway to the east end of the site. That will be a 30-foot wide driveway, and the intent there is mainly that will be sort of an exit. We don't really anticipate many vehicles coming in that drive, but it will primarily be an exit from the site. We have, I think Mr. Evans mentioned that driveway permits will be required for both of these drives, and we have made application for those permits. We just do not have them at this time. Another thing that we've done on the site, we have expanded the paved area to allow better maneuverability on the site. I think one of the items that Mr. Evans brought up was the fact that we do have a stream on the site. We have done all this, and as you can see on the drawing or on the plan, we've managed to, number one, avoid any impacts to the stream, and also avoid any impacts to the stream buffer. So we're very mindful of that, and we made everything the other thing that I do want to point out that I feel like is important, and you can see a little bit on this rendering behind me. We've made efforts to make sure that we screen any areas that we have outside equipment and any sort of outside storage. We provided screens. In fact, the plan in the lower right corner of the plan, you see a detail of the proposed masonry screen wall that we have in a couple of locations there. So those are just a couple of highlights. Just real quickly, as far as flow through the site, our thinking is that, as I said earlier, be vehicles will enter in the larger drive, make a right turn and go around to the west side of the existing building. And for the most part, most of the vehicles will enter the service bay from the south, so that once they're in the service bays, they'll be facing Murray Drive in the bays, and then exit from the bays and either exit out the wider drive there or turn to the right and exit out the proposed drive. That's a quick rundown. Are there any questions for me as far as site plan?
The square footage of the building, is that changing?
Yes, sir. It's the existing building. We are adding on to the existing building. The proposed addition is 12,600 square feet, and it's primarily the service building. The existing building, and Mr. Bowling probably will speak a little more to what's going to go on inside as far as any upfit or anything in the existing. I'm a civil engineer. I always tell people I have to work outside. They don't even let me inside the building.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
As Alan just indicated, preview there, we are going to move now to the submitted ruling testimony on inside the condition and how that's going to
Thank you, council, for letting us speak to you tonight on David Jigs, that contractor project, and we work closely with the city on the development proposals. I'd like to visit item A just for a moment, just reaffirm the hours and make one minor clarification. The hours of operation are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Monday through Friday, and 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday. Practically, the business will operate Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and no plans right now on Saturday. The nature of the conditional use permit, we did want to go ahead and do flexibility. Do some adjustment of hours around back. As far as Mr. Evans mentioned, the trash pickup, there's no change there. We're still complying. We have no trash pickup on Saturday or Sundays. And again, we limited the parking spaces. I would like to speak briefly to the driveway permit. We actually have an application we have to go back to Mr. Davidson, and we did discuss with the circulation within the site and the rest of this as well on to Curry, and that was a compliance information was for the position of the signs. We feel like that's something to check the box on. Also, it may help in advance. We don't propose coming off of Curry and as part of a suggested formal condition, there would be no right coming from Curry on the family. That owns any traffic to go back to the residential area at all. Speaking to the building as it's constructed now is a brick exterior, and that's proposed for condition as well. Harmonious, having some similar architectural features. We did propose to paint the existing brick to kind of give it a fresh look. We believe it will stay very much harmonious with what is there. The other architectural features, minor exceptions, you'll see the 3 largest glass sections. The rest of the building pretty much look like it does layout with a fresh paint. Condition, I think, enhanced there as well. We also do provide screening. There will be some used tires, trailers on site. We propose some masonry screening of that as well. You can see that up at the other end. And here you barely see just the top edge of the trailer. Those proposed. We have, as Mr. Hill indicated, we have made accommodations on site. Any support activities that we were screening those from the public or maintaining landscaping, as Mr. Evans suggested.
Well, you may lobby that with, Ms. Thomas if you like, but I did want to indicate that.
But that half day on Saturday is very, very, very nice for a small business. My editorial.
I understand. We do appreciate that. So, again, if there's no other questions, I'll dismiss myself. But thank you again very much for hearing this. Let me make one other point. We have been able to participate in conferences and other review purposes. You may be familiar with your grant recently. Support protecting common boundaries they have proposed that. At their other facilities, you may be familiar recently with the Highway 49 and Back Road connection. Part of that was that warehouse. But
contact information, both phone number and email, so anyone could reach out to us with questions or concerns. And I did not receive any calls in response to that letter. I hope you'll agree that you've heard evidence tonight sufficient to make findings of fact favorably, that this use will be harmonious, will not materially endanger public safety, the community, will not injure adjoining property values, and it does comply with your zoning ordinance. To wrap up, I would like to ask Ms. Thomas to come make a few comments. As Mr. Boiling mentioned, Ms. Tyre has been a longstanding corporate citizen here in Asheboro, and I know she's excited about this newest project and would like to talk about it.
So I am Sally Thomas, principal of SPT LLC, and as well the president and co-owner of James Thomas Company. And I'm very happy to be here this evening. Thank you so much for your attention to our project. This coming year, we'll celebrate our 40th anniversary of our home. And I'll just like to say that this is a lot better than where we started, which was in the driveway of our home. And so we have 40 years history, and I will say that 40 years ago, my dad started it in the driveway, and he literally ran a commercial operation out of the driveway on Sunset Drive for 1 year, and the city would call, like, literally repeatedly for a year, saying, Paul, you've got to get this out of your residential neighborhood. And the city was actually the people who found our first building and moved Dad in. So this is a lot better than on Sunset Drive. I think you can agree.
Quonset hut was a big step up then.
Yes, it was a huge step. So we've currently been in our current facility since 1986, and it has just seen better days. The building was there before us. It used to be an RV camper center back in the day, but it's just seen better days. And I've just been really looking for just the right fit for us, and did not know if we were going to use our current property and try to work through a renovation, or if we were going to move it to, like, say, Goodyear, or the now Palmview property that we currently own. I never had a piece about it, and then this KW thing came to my mind, and I mean, I'm just a sucker. Mayor Smith tells me all the time I'm crazy. He told me he could not believe that I would take Cherry Street on, and then he came back to me and said, I'll never question you again. And so I really appreciate that. But I do love to repurpose buildings. My dad gave me a tremendous love and respect for real estate, and when I was talking, he said, leave a property better than you ever take it, and that's exactly what I think that I do in his memory. That's everything I try to do is to give him honor. I think this does it. It's a great, I think, it's a win for the city of Asheboro, and it's definitely going to be a win for my customers, as well as my employees. So thank you for listening tonight.
What is the current volume of traffic system? You talked about 64.
Yes, sir. Depends on what time of the year it is, but roughly we see about 40 some trucks a day. Summertime, we quite busier. But we also obviously run trucks out to do service calls and stuff like that. So, yes, sir. So I would say anywhere between 40, depending 40 and 60.
Part of this, we run off-road out of there, well, it's
64 will be completely gone. So I've already moved the retail to the new building on Highway 49, which I think is just phenomenal. I still drive by there. We did it this week. I was like, God, that is such a good looking building. And I'm like, God, that it looks good. And I forget that it's mine. But
Jeff Schwartz is probably still mad.
he probably is. He's probably, yeah. He and Dad are talking about this. But the building is, I plan on just clearing the land once commercial moves over, because it's going to be just strictly commercial. And we take care of so many of our customers already around that area. Electric. I mean, there's a lot that it's just such a nice, easy. This goes through from our current existing building, so it made sense. The use, the ease of being able to come off the bypass 64 will be, I don't know what 64 is. Another opportunity.
Our comments, but the whole team is here. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to make sure you get the
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this request? Anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council on this request? Sir, if you will come in, and there's a sign-up sheet here on the table, right here at the podium. If you will print your name on that, there's not a pen up there. And the purpose of that is just so that we get your name right in the written record.
I just had one comment.
The oath will have to be administered also, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and you will need to be sworn.
I am a resident there. The last 19 years, I've lived 5 houses. I represent I just want to say that to my knowledge,
Appreciate your comments.
I know you, sir, you wrote your name, but if you wouldn't mind stating it for the audio takeoff. Thank you,
I
sir.
recognize you, Bill, with the mask on.
Get a lot of it.
high school. And my dad was a competitor for the first 10 of their 40 years.
Max Garage.
Automotive tire.
That was one of the great automotive repair places in town. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Okay, then we can. Council have any questions of staff or any of the people that spoke? Then we will move to deliberative phase. We have 2 action items. What's your pleasure, council?
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that based on the consistency of staff recommendation, planning board approval, evidence presented is all in harmony with the rezoning request, and based on that consistency, I would make a motion that we rezone into the district as applied.
we have a motion to, place it in the district.
And if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, and explicitly including the consistency statement approval.
Including the consistency statement.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Snuggs is the second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now, on the second part, the issuance of a permit, conditional use permit.
Mr. Mayor, based on testimony, and we might want to ask for reiteration that the conditions as presented are acceptable to the applicant. Based on their acceptance of the conditions as presented by city staff, I make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit.
A motion by Mr. Moffitt to approve the conditional use permit with the conditions.
As stated by the applicant and
As stated
staff in their
and
report.
agreed to.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks, in his bright red coat. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you so much. I have one comment to make. Sally Thomas and the Paul Thomas Company is the best example of one of my favorite sayings. You can do anything you want to do if you're willing to throw enough money at it. And you certainly do. I am constantly amazed with your creativity and your pursuit of quality and excellence. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. Mr. Evans, I believe you're up again with a 6B is a final plat certification for Robin's Nest.
Yes.
And if you don't mind, I'm gonna stand up for a second.
Sure,
I'm
sure.
getting a cramp in my leg.
All right. Yes, sir. So everyone should have the plats there at your places showing the next section of this subdivision. This is for the Robin's Nest subdivision. You've seen this earlier this year. The applicant for the request is Davidson Land Development LLC, and the property area includes just over 9 acres. There's a total of 4 parcel identification numbers that are part of the request, and a total of 19 lots that are shown on this section of the plat. The average lot size is just under 18,000 square feet, so just a little bit less than a half of an acre on average. So if you kind of look at the next map, you'll see that the outline of the lots and the public right-of-ways are in red here. So this continues Robin's Nest Drive, which is just north of East Allred Street. And on the west side of Gold Hill Road, there are 2 entrances currently serving the subdivision, and so those would continue to serve this phase of the subdivision. You'll notice some floodplain off to the west, but there is no floodplain designated for this section of the subdivision. So in terms of topography, it's a little bit steeper on the west or the left side of Robin's Nest Drive, but nothing extremely severe. And as far as utilities, those both city water and sewer are serving the property. We just don't see them mapped yet because they have literally just been installed the last couple of weeks. As far as the aerial map, you can see the surrounding subdivision off to the south that continues to be filled in with new development. And then some of the low density to medium density residential uses just generally in all directions here. Just taking a look at this, just to give you a little bit of context for what areas you've seen developed, what area this is as far as the subdivision. The area you're looking at tonight is highlighted in yellow. So this is this section. This will eventually continue to the north with Robbins Nest Drive extending. There is a cul-de-sac that eventually will end in a future phase. However, that is designated with public right-of-way to the adjacent property, so that if there is development on that adjacent parcel, kind of going into the next phase, those would be able to connect potentially to possibly have a third entrance at some point, but only 2 entrances serving the subdivision now. To the plat itself, taking a closer look at that, you'll see the extension of Robbins Nest Drive, and then Oriole Court, which is a cul-de-sac. So this is public right-of-way, city-maintained street, and then lots. It not being a PUD, we don't have any common area in this subdivision. And so one of the items, just to note, if you look at the Robbins Nest Drive where it extends north of Oriole Court, that's about 240 feet. So one of the questions that we did in our review, have the fire department and public works review, was just to make sure that that's an acceptable distance as far as not having a turnaround. And so they determined that based on the short length of that road segment and the likelihood that that's going to be continued in a very short time with the future phase, they determined that that was not an issue that they had any objection to. So the property is inside the city limits. As I mentioned, there are city services. It is a conventional residential subdivision. As far as the underlying zoning in the R10 district, it does allow single-family dwellings. It also allows two-family dwellings. Now, there may be some deed restrictions that the property owner, as part of the subdivision, wants to place on those for single-family, as that's how Robbins Nest has developed. But the underlying zoning would allow possibly both if lot size requirements are met. And that's 10,000 square feet for single-family, 15,000 for two-family. And you saw the 2 existing entrances that are serving the development from phase 1. So the total length of new public right-of-way is approximately 1,055.5 feet, and that's with Robbins Nest Drive and Oriole Court being extended. And so future development, you more than likely in the very near future will be seeing a future phase on the property to the north of Robbins Nest. We have routed this plan to our various departments, and so in your earlier staff report, it said we still had some comments pending. Those comments and corrections have been addressed by engineering and public works, so they've determined that's satisfactory. Same in terms of plat corrections as far as planning comments. Those have all been addressed. We had some very minor clerical items back when the report went out last week, so those have been fixed. So just a few items. Uncompleted improvements have been guaranteed in strict compliance with the subdivision ordinance. So the developer has given us a bond for the final paving of the roadway. And so that's been reviewed by Public Works. The amount is satisfactory with what we have. We've also received a 1-year warranty. If there's any sort of defects in the infrastructure, those will be provided and addressed by the developer within that warranty period that's standard per our ordinance. And of course, I just mentioned the turnaround issue where Robbins Nest Drive extends those 240 feet. So considering those comments, staff would recommend approval. The planning board also reviewed this plat on Monday. They also recommended approval as well. But I'll be glad to take any questions. I believe the applicant's representative is here as well if you have any questions of them.
Questions? Anybody? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve this request?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion. Excuse me, Jay, I apologize.
Go right ahead, Mr. Swiggers.
Make a motion, we approve the request as presented.
Have a motion by Mr. Swears to approve the request. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Redding. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Welcome. Okay, one more time, Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Item 6C, I will open a public hearing on consideration of a resolution adopting a Davidson Randolph Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. The request that you have in front of you, and there is a resolution there in your packets. We also had an excerpt from the proposed hazard mitigation plan. So you saw the entire document. Should have gotten an email with a link to that. So we have quite a bit of information covered in the plan, but I'm just going to hit some of the highlights just very, very briefly as to what it is, why it's coming before you. The plan itself, it deals with various hazards, and those include hazards that can be natural. It includes hazards that can be based on human causes or some sort of infrastructural hazard. So covered in that plan, we have flooding, we have hurricanes, we have tornadoes, we have droughts. Those are just a few items. And of course, we've seen several of those in the last few years. One of your next items is specifically addressing the hurricanes we saw recently. Some of the human hazards that are covered, they include nuclear emergencies. Fortunately, that's not a really high risk, being that we're more than 50 miles outside of any sort of radius of a nuclear facility. And then also dam or levee failure, and there's quite a few privately owned smaller dams in Randolph County, so that's covered as well. So the main, just as far as focus on the plan is to address strategies that deal with various hazards. So that includes public education. In that way, we, as far as different ways that's done, I'll just give you one example. A lot of times we'll have a developer come in, they have property that's in a floodplain, and so we'll try to work with them to find a site on the property so that they're not building into the floodplain. Or it may just be a homeowner, someone who really doesn't do much developing, but they may want to build an addition onto their house. So we'll, kind of work with them and try to find some location where they're not going to be building into the floodplain, so they don't have to deal with, of course, having a risk to their property or themselves, or having to have their insurance rates increase, or having to take on flood insurance, just to kind of prevent that from happening when we're able to talk to folks about that. We also, when we have different hazards, we have updates on the website, Channel 8, our social media and Facebook page. If we're having an ice storm or some hurricane or some natural event, that's one of the mitigation measures, like you saw in some of those examples. As far as preventative, like in our ordinances, if we're looking at street trees and subdivisions, that's come up a few different times over recent years. We're looking for the types of trees that aren't going to fall onto power lines, just to select the type of plantings that are not going to create hazards through some landscaping and beautifications. Another example, preventative, that's covered on the list there is, like I know, talking with Public Works, they'll go out and check some of the creeks and streams if there's going to be a major storm before that happens, and see if there's any sort of buildup of debris and try to address that. There's some infrastructural means covered in the plan, and that includes like the water plant having pumps for backup generators. So that's just another example there. And just I will say the reason you'll notice it's Davidson Randolph, and before it was simply the Randolph Hazard Mitigation Plan. That was basically a designation from Fema that they've grouped counties into different regions, and so we were grouped in with Davidson. So of course it includes what you have there in the packets, some of the items related to the city's plan, but also it deals with the other municipalities in Randolph County, other municipalities in Davidson County. So we have 14 municipalities and 2 counties that are covered in that plan. So that's why you saw all the, it's just as lengthy as it was to cover a wide area. It's basically how FEMA grouped this together. Typically, it's updated every 5 years. It did come before council in 2016, so we're a little bit early because Davidson was a year before us last time that it got updated. So we got grouped together with them, and that's why you're seeing it as soon as you are. So, and of course, one of the main reasons we have the plan is if it's one of the requirements for state and federal disaster funding. So, so that's where you have the resolution that's in your packet asking to adopt that. So, so I'll be glad to answer any questions, but what we would recommend is adoption of the resolution by reference. But I'll certainly be happy to, if there's any questions.
Questions? Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Evans.
Yes,
You
sir.
must have told us everything we need to know.
Okay, thank you.
If you read the list, looks like most everything's in progress or done.
May I have a motion to approve by reference?
Mayor, I move we approve this resolution by reference.
Thank you, Mr. Burks. Have a motion by Mr. Burks to approve the resolution by reference. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swears. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Evans. You've done a good job tonight. Mr. Leonard. Item 7, you've got an annexation petition, and I will open a public hearing for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was presented at the November City Council meeting. Resolution has been properly advertised, and now's the time for the public hearing, which you just opened. We have an annexation ordinance that's been prepared by the city attorney, making the annexation effective upon adoption, and staff recommends adoption by reference.
Okay. Any questions regarding this request, annexation request? I'll entertain a motion.
Just for the record, could we ask to make sure there's no one here?
Oh, I'm sorry, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address the council regarding this annexation request?
Basically, there's no one here.
No, I think we're down to bare bones here. Okay, now I will entertain a motion to approve by.
Mayor, I move we approve this annexation request by reference.
Have a motion by Mr. Burks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Redding. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you,
you. Thank you, sir. Item 8, Mr. Sugg, you've got a consideration of a resolution adopting Title 6.
Yes, sir. The Federal Highway Administration has designated the Office of Civil Rights within the North Carolina Department of Transportation as being responsible for confirming compliance by subrecipient municipalities that we're complying with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and other non-discrimination laws and regulations that have come along over time. The city's had informal practices to make sure that no one is discriminated against in receiving programs, services, funding on the basis of their membership in a protected group. But in order to verify our compliance with the various regulations, it needs to be more formal than that. The resolution that is in front of you and was distributed last night, now the one that's in front of you contains a couple of clerical corrections, but nothing that changed the substance. of the document. What's in front of you is the resolution that formally adopts a Title VI implementation plan for the city of Asheboro. I said that's referring to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. As you will notice, the documents are inclusive, though, of other regulations beyond that. It formally adopts it. It designates the city manager as the Title VI liaison for the city. It also formally adopts a Title VI non-discrimination policy statement that will be signed by the mayor. It contains the template for the complaint form that can be filled out if someone feels when they're receiving program, activities, services, they feel like there has been discrimination based on a membership in a protected group. You can fill that form out, and there are instructions that are being adopted with this resolution because of all the exhibits that are attached. And it also contains the explanation of how the city will conduct data collection and analysis to determine if any practices are being engaged in that would lead to a question of whether or not membership in a protected group has an impact on your receipt of those services, which clearly should not happen, cannot happen. I'll be happy to answer any questions and go into more detail, but it is the recommendation to adopt this resolution and its accompanying exhibits by reference.
Questions? Anybody?
You know, knowing the protocol and requirements for anything that involves federal or state funding, especially federal, is shocking to me. This isn't already incorporated in some other previous manner at this late date. I mean, knowing that we receive federal funds.
That is correct.
But here we are, so there we go.
That is correct.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I will entertain a motion to adopt the city's Title VI implementation plan. Motion to adopt by reference.
Mayor, I'll move we adopt by reference.
It must be the chair.
It is. I was fighting it earlier, but
Okay, a motion by Mr. Burks. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Snuggs. Comments, discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Sugg, item 9, first reading and vote on construction and demolition debris landfill franchise ordinance.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This ordinance will require 2 readings and 2 votes. This will be the first of the required readings and votes. This does pertain to the landfill at 385 Gold Hill Road. There is no change in the footprint of the landfill. There's no change in the waste that will be received. There's no change in the lifespan. There's no change in the service area. Nothing like that. Even the price list is the same, still relying on the CPI to change over time to reflect incremental increases. The one thing that is changing is there's a purchase transaction contemplated where the landfill would go from Morton and Sewell Development Company, Inc. to Asheboro Land Development, LLC. And I do believe Mr. Morton, he was here earlier, I believe he and the prospective purchaser are here. This is not on for hearing tonight. A hearing has been advertised for January the 7th, consistent with state statute. The city's involvement in this is purely limited to the fact that in order to maintain the required regulatory approvals from the state, the landfill needs a franchise from the city. The franchise needs to reflect the owner. And in order to allow that transaction to take place, what is contemplated is, if approved at this vote and then the final vote after the hearing on January the 7th of 2021, is that the ordinance would become effective January 7, 2021, and then any ordinance in conflict with it would expire or terminate as of April 1, 2021. So that allows a window for the parties to complete their transaction. If something happens, Mr. Morton would still have his franchise, and the city council could act to stop it if there was something unexpected transpired. So with that being said, and emphasizing again, it has been properly advertised for a hearing in January. I'd recommend adoption by reference of this ordinance for the first reading. Be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions of Mr. Sugg?
like I said, Mr. Morton, I do things out here if he,
Mr. Morton, do you want to address the council, sir?
Not necessarily, I'd just like to introduce the new purchaser of the landfill. This goes through, this is Dan Wall Recycling in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's a young, driving young man, and I think he'll be a good fit for this facility.
Okay, nice to meet you, Mr. Wall. Any questions? Okay. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we adopt a reference, please.
Have a motion by Mr. Moffett. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Redding. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Ogburn, you got some updates on Hurricane Florence and Hurricane Michael and FEMA funding.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just remind the council then, well, we're talking about a hazard mitigation plan. In October of 2018 and September and October of 2018, we had two hurricanes back-to-back, Hurricane Florence and Hurricane Michael. We received $302,691.86 from Hurricane Florence. You may remember of that council presentation, Mr. Roney showed you, excuse me, all the pump stations were flooded and we lost power at Lake Lucas. The transfer switch was washed out, all that. Remember that? And following that, 1 month later, we had Tropical Storm Michael. I think it says Hurricane Michael on your agenda. It was a hurricane when it hit. By the time it got to here, it was a tropical storm. We have received $46,362, but we have not closed that account yet with FEMA. FEMA has reserved $21,000 for the Lake Lucas dock repair project. That is not in that $46,000 I just mentioned. On October 19th, the city received bids from 3 vendors. Now, we kind of dropped the ball on this, Mayor, in the COVID year that's been. We probably should have bid this back in last January or February. You can see the low bid was $85,775 from Rowboat Dock and Dredge. That's a big gap between that and $21,000. Now, we could negotiate with FEMA, so I don't want to blame on FEMA what's going on. We have to work with them, obviously. But we think at this point that all the bids should be rejected for FEMA funds, all 3 bids on that. Let the staff go back and reevaluate that project. We've learned from the manufacturer of the dock that's still underwater out there that we bought the top-of-the-line equipment about 5 years before this, and they still guarantee it. So we got to get it out and see what's in it. We can do that under a purchase agreement. We'll close this account. That'll allow, with your consent tonight, we'll reject the bids. We'll close the account. That'll allow this fall when Debbie and our auditor do the audit, you won't hear them standing up. We're still waiting to receive funds from FEMA, like we just heard this past January. And you'll be hearing again in this coming January or February. And then we can reevaluate the project this spring based on what we discover when we get the whole unit up, and then we can budget for it properly. So that's our recommendation. Apologize for my throat tonight.
Questions? Okay.
So we just need the council action, Mayor, to reject the bids and direct the staff to reevaluate with the project and come back as part of the budgeting process. And as part of that would be to close the open FEMA account.
All right. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Redding to do what John said.
Reject the bids, close the account, rebid.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Mr. Burks, thank you. Discussion? Any questions for John? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I know this has kind of been a burden on staff, and I appreciate staff staying with it and coming up with an alternative plan in light of the high bids. Okay, I think the city engineer is gonna do this next one, are you not?
Yes, sir.
Asheboro Regional Airport, existing hangars.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at their regular meeting in October, the Airport Authority met concerning existing hangars at the airport, including hangars that will be very soon rotating off of a current lease and back into the city's owned by the city, basically. So with these, we needed to set up a lease, floor lease type agreement for those hangars. The hangars that are going to be done will include, well, let me start here. A request was also from Cardinal Air to increase the T hangar rate from $125 a month to $150 a month. This rate is kind of more in line with existing local airports that are similar to our size. So the Airport Authority was making a recommendation to the city for that increase, to the city council for that increase. The other hangars that will be coming out of lease will be hangars B, C, and D. They're all 36 by 40 hangars, or 1,440 square feet. All are currently uninsulated and have no HVAC system. Based on the findings from the Airport Authority, they recommend a rental rate of $3 per square foot, which is in line with other local airports, which comes to $360 per month. All three of these hangars are on a master meter for the electricity, and it is paid by the city. It is possible to do improvements and insulate and add HVAC to these, but it may not be cost effective, as they would only probably get around $500 per month. So they recommended, the Airport Authority recommended to stay with the $360 per month for all three hangars and keep the electricity under the city billing. The Airport Authority also recommended a annual hangar rent of increase of 3%. This is a breakdown showing each of the hangars and where they are. One of them actually expired August 15th of 2020. The other two August 15th. I'm sorry, two of them August 15th of 2020, one August 15th of 2017. The other hangars in question are Hangar K, which is 80 by 80 or 6,400 square feet. Hangar E, which is 50 by 40 or 2,000 square feet. And Hangar F, which is 42 by 36 or 1,510 square feet. All are currently insulated, and hangars E and F have an HVAC system. And based on the findings, the Airport Authority recommended a rental rate for Hangar K, which is the larger one, which does not have the HVAC, to be $1.875 per square foot, or $1,000 per month. And this one is currently leased. The other, for Hangar E and F, they recommend a $3 per square foot or $500 a month and $378 per month respectively. All three hangars are on individual meters for electricity, and so they would be the responsibility of the tenant. And they're also recommending an annual increase of 3%.
Is K the one that was commonly referred to as the Cloud
Foster hangar, yes, sir.
And one could say that the rent's attractive, but what's inside it pays a big tax bill.
That's correct. It currently has a Citation Mustang and another plane in it. I think it's to the tune of about 1.7 million.
Who leases it now?
It's the gentleman that does the buildings,
Durabil.
Durabil buildings. I'm not sure what his name is.
Well, you know, I used to comment, I was fond a few years ago of saying that the Klausner jet sitting out there paid more tax than the 21 homes in my neighborhood, and didn't put any kids in the schools or use our streets or whatever. So, the more we can do out there to increase hangars, hangar rentals, and planes actually based out there is great for us. You need action to approve these increases.
So there won't be any action tonight.
Just give us guidance.
Just need guidance to prepare a resolution for the city attorney to prepare a resolution.
And we can do it just by your general consensus. If it's the general consensus of the council that you're in agreement with the airport recommendation, we'll proceed in getting.
I think we are.
Agreements.
Are we not?
We are.
We are.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, under this same umbrella, while we're on the consensus pathway, excuse me, the airport authority is also interested in a consensus from us. Consensus usually means free. The current state of private aviation is booming. It's very high. We've got no hangars available. There's two items I'd like for us to look at. The one I believe was commonly referred to as the Coltrane hangar.
That's correct. I think the company is Randolph Hangar
Rentals LLC.
Hangar Rentals. Yeah, Randolph Hangar Rentals LLC.
And it's, there's a opportunity, currently available, that it would be favorable for the city to purchase that hangar and then put it in our rental inventory. And a funding mechanism for that purchase, would be to investigate. Monies are available from time to time through the Department of Aviation, from the Department of Transportation. And it would be good for, staff to, investigate and make application towards that, at least see what's the Department of Transportation budget is a kaleidoscope right now, but money ends up in different pots, and if there are some, there is precedent for that being available as a grant to purchase these things.
If I may say, I have been in touch with the Division of Aviation concerning the non-primary entitlement, which we get every year. It is possible, they are investigating because rules change every year, that the funding we already have from because we can roll up to 3 years over of $150,000 a year, we can possibly use that, and they are investigating that at this point.
So I think that would be beneficial to us. The other item that I would like for us to address, coming from the Airport Authority and from Cardinal Air, piggyback on what the mayor said earlier. They currently, there's two transactions going on at the airport. Trinity Transport's looking at the Crumley hangar, in Lane Parker. He's purchased a late model. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's a new one. It was a late model King Air 200. This is about $1.5 million to $2 million aircraft, and just put that in perspective, that's it's roughly $6,500 a million is what we get in property taxes. That's right. And and that's in addition to fuel, $1,000, $1,200, whatever the rent, depending on the size, and most of those folks make their own improvements inside these, because once you get into this level, upfit desires vary greatly. The smaller hangars, a lot of people are just looking for cheap space, or something dry, more or less. There's another transaction that's an inquiry for an additional King Air, and believe it or not, King Air is one of the bigger planes that you need the wingspan for. Once you get into jets, Citation, that sort of thing, their wingspan is 10 foot less than a King Air. So you get into a smaller door, and I mentioned the doors because that's oftentimes half the cost of the structure itself is those doors, $25,000–$30,000 apiece. There's currently, 2 shoppers that we cannot accommodate, that have, Beach Barons. That's a twin-engine piston plane, 6-passenger plane. New, they're $1.5 million, $1.6 million. Trinity Transport had one, and they're going to the King Air. These folks' planes in the neighborhood of $800,000 to $1 million, you know, and a hangar rent for something like that could be anywhere from $800 to $1,100 a month. Plus, and this is the $6,500 per million annually on those hangars that would, a 60 by 60 would easily do, you know, you could get a barn in a 40 by 40, but, you know, if you're gonna build something, and that's what the feasibility study request is, that we have a consensus to allow them to entertain a study to possibly build 3 hangars. Now, these transactions that I've mentioned are immediate, and we most likely could not meet that timetable, but they are consistent inquiries through Cardinal Air. I talked with Richard McGraw out there this afternoon at Depton, you know, about the timing of this. So it'd probably take us 6 months to put up a hangar. But in terms of economic development, you know, we pay this many dollars for these jobs, and we don't even get any tax money back for 5 years often, you know. These things have 5 and 8 year payback. I mean, they're tremendous, and that doesn't even count the economic impact of these decision makers coming into Asheboro. So I just asked if we could give a consensus to let the airport authority, you know, conduct a feasibility study, get some estimates, and at that time we could get more concrete. But I really think it'd be a great economic incentive package for us to address that.
Yeah. Well, all the money and effort we've put into increasing our runway and improving the taxiway and everything, the overlay and everything we've done out there is designed to attract people to base their planes there. And if we don't have the hangars for them, they're not gonna base their planes there.
And the easiest way towards our terminal project is more traffic.
Yep.
And the easiest way to more traffic.
Terminal project.
So, consensus?
Yeah.
Okay. Michael?
Yes, sir.
Got your marching orders.
Sir.
Thank you.
I'm rubbing off on you, Mayor. Got your marching orders. That's what they say. Mr. Rodman says around here all the time.
Item 12, Mayor Smith will yield to Manager Ogburn.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of things. As we move through this COVID year, we're not being able to host the Christmas party tomorrow night with our partner, the Chamber of Commerce. Unfortunately, we just don't have the manpower to put out there or to risk putting out there. I just remind the council that there's minimum staffing for police and fire. We can't fall below that. We still have to have water plant operators and wastewater plant operators and people to fix water and sewer leaks. The mayor called me the other night. Ridge Avenue had a big break. It's down about 27 degrees, 26 degrees. I think they finished up about 11:30. Katie retired from there. She can tell you it gets mighty dark and mighty cold out there in the wintertime. You don't remember the summer breaks, but you remember the winter breaks. So that's one of the things. Also, with the governor's new executive order that kicks in tomorrow night, that's a 10 o'clock curfew statewide, unless you're one of the exemptions in the order. There's lots of exemptions in the order, as I mentioned last week when we had our special call meeting and I was on the phone, but that we just need to be in by the end and comply with the governor's order. As you've heard tonight, whether it be the state or the feds, we're the low man on the government totem pole, so most of the time, a lot of what we do is reacting to other people, other layers of government that put into it. I did mention last week, too, under the part about what we can do now, we can reach out to our federal delegation, Senator Burr, Senator Tillis, and Representative Budd. We did that. Mayor Smith did that this week. As of a little while ago, the negotiations were still ongoing in Congress, but where they end up, I don't know. Congress has the usual habit of waiting to the last minute. They have till December the 18th. We run out of money December the 18th. Actually, we run out of money tomorrow, but they extended the budget 1 week. So it's the name of the game up there. We'll probably be sending some more letters next week, reaching out again next week. There are no Christmas parties this year. There's no fire department. There's no Chamber of Commerce. There's no deciding which one you're going to or both. Our friends and the partners down there at Asheboro Housing Authority could not have one either. So this is our last city event for the year. On behalf of all the city employees, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and Happy Holidays to all the folks out there. I bring special news from Trevor Nuttall, who started back half-time this week. It's good to see him. He's was really a sick man there for a while. He's back. He's gained about 16 or 18 pounds back. He lost 60. He didn't have a lot to lose. So it's good to be back. He's obviously got a long way to go to build his strength back. This is a tough time to come back when he's still got to be masked up all the time. But it's good to see him back. He is very grateful for the kindness and well wishes and prayers and thoughts that the employees and his fellow employees and the council, the planning board, and the redevelopment commission sent to him. So we wanted me to pass that on to you. And on behalf of all the employees, we wish each of the council, the planning board members, and the redevelopment commission, the airport authority, the ABC board, all best wishes for a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and best wishes for a 2021. We jokingly said up at Public Services, we've literally had a dumpster fire this year. We hope to put it out in 2021. I spoke with the Angie Orth earlier today. Randolph Health is getting Randolph County's allotment of the first round of the Pfizer COVID vaccine. I guess we'll receive that maybe about Christmas, plus or minus. The latest number, I think I gave this last week, but I think there's only 87,000 doses for North Carolina. Obviously, it's very tight. So we're doing our best to get our firefighters in that first round. She said she'd reach out to me when she knew more. I think right before we came in earlier, the FDA advisory committee recommended it. I think the FDA will meet tomorrow to probably approve the dissemination of the vaccine. It goes to each of the 50 states, Washington, D.C., and the territories on a predetermined allotment, and then it's up to the state to divide it up from there. So you will see that the large health care systems, Charlotte Meck doing business as, what are they down there? Atrium, Wake Forest, Cone, Pitt, Memorial, Vidant down in eastern North Carolina. They're getting the most of the doses. That's what most of the people are. So we'll keep you updated through the holiday season. I want to remind the council members that, and the Mayor Smith goes, if we can continue to have elective surgeries, Mayor Smith will be out next week to have his other knee done. And we then send you best wishes and thoughts, Mayor. Friday the 18th at 2 o'clock. Friday the 18th at 2 o'clock. The City of Asheboro, NCDOT, and the NC Zoo will be hosting a ribbon cutting for the new bypass, the Southern Loop. We will get you the location if you want to attend now. The mandatory is 50, so I'll have Joanne reach out to you the first of the week so we can have a head count. Mr. Moffitt will be on the dais, one of the speakers, as he's representing both the city and the zoo. He gets to pinch hit for 2 people. For those of you members of the council who don't know, Zoo Society member Pat, Zoo Society NC Zoo Executive Director and Executive Director of the Zoo Society. Pat Simmons has had some surgery this week in Winston-Salem. She's on a recovery period herself. We wish all of her the best wishes for her Christmas season and a speedy recovery. And so Mr. Moffitt will be representing the Zoo Council and the city at that meeting. We think it'll take about 30 minutes. We do anticipate you getting to ride the loop if you want to come and see it, or you can wait about 30 minutes and ride it without the highway patrol escort. That's what we're working on. So Joanne Cockman will reach out to you the first of the week, and from the staff, Mayor, that's all we have.
Okay, thanks, John. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Ms. Snuggs, got anything?
Just wish everybody a Merry Christmas and please be safe, stay safe.
Thank you. Mr. Moffitt?
Merry Christmas, wear your mask, be safe. You never know. I was fortunate with light duty COVID, there others are not.
So what?
What? I had the COVID.
Yeah. And Mayor, I'm fortunate too. My dad and I are fortunate too. We were exposed the same time Mr. Bell and his family, and they have it and we don't, so.
I'm going to city's blood drive, find out I've got the antibodies.
Local,
In my self-centered, generous donation.
Don't say anything Thursday that I wouldn't say. And don't say anything Thursday that I would say. Ms. Reddy?
Best wishes to you on your surgery, and again, Merry Christmas. It's been a very different year. I've missed spending it with y'all, like we normally do, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everyone. I am just so thankful that Trevor is back with us.
I know.
He's been on my prayer list for a while, and I'm going to keep him on there. And I'm just so thrilled that he's doing back and doing better. I just can't imagine him losing 60 pounds.
I know.
But anyway, so thankful for that. Trevor serves with me on the Salvation Army Advisory Board, and of which is a United Way agency, so we're thankful for what the city did to help the United Way Fund. Salvation Army is hurting this year, but we're not hurting as bad as a lot of people are. And the Salvation Army provides thousands of people with toys, food, electricity, rents, lots of things throughout the year. People aren't shopping, so they're not dropping change in those buckets. When you see a red kettle out there, if you can make an extra effort to go out, maybe even write a check. If you're watching on YouTube, write a check, drop it in a bucket somewhere. You'll help somebody have a better Christmas. You'll help somebody have a better year. So thank you for all you do with the city and everybody in our community. We're a very generous community. We're very fortunate to live here. So thank you for each and every one of you.
Mr. Swears?
Well, join everybody else in wishing everyone a happy holiday and Merry Christmas. I saw the announcement on one of the TV stations about the parade cancellation, and they had just a snippet of us on the fire truck, and made it nostalgic for riding that old coal fire truck. I just look forward to next year when we can hopefully get the vaccine here and get back to normal.
Yeah, and Mayor, if we stick to schedule, which would be a miracle this year, it'd be one of the few things that's been on schedule. We will receive the new aerial truck next Friday.
All right.
Friday the 18th, so
Well,
maybe.
missing everything.
Yeah, so maybe,
I hate I'm missing the dedication of bypass. And getting to climb on the fire truck.
well,
Think you can bring it by the house?
yeah. Yeah, you can just go over to,
That's a pretty good trip for that thing, but it's downhill one way.
you can get a Thomas Tire to fix that knee, and you can be back on Friday, so. Yeah, we'll get the new truck out.
Fire truck.
We'll have to train up on it. And you may have seen that we was announced earlier this month, too, or the end of last month, that we are now certified in heavy rescue by the State Fire Marshal Department of Insurance, also Asheboro Fire Department. So Chief Summers has been a great addition down there. I would like to mention, too, the fine work Captain Thompson's doing back there for the Asheboro Police Department. Our command team has been almost entirely quarantined in the police department. Captain Thompson is chief, assistant chief, deputy chief, patrol commander, administrative commander, and whatever else. ABC permit, mask enforcement commander. He's everything this last 2.5 weeks. So let's Wolfpack guys stick together, though. And so he's doing a great job back there. And we're, like I said, one of the reasons about the parade seriously is our staffing. We've had some COVID and a lot of people quarantined. So fortunately, not many people really sick, but so we've got to really watch our staffing levels.
If we have to quarantine half our fire department or half our police department, mission critical employees, we're in real trouble. So just a lot of consideration in this trying time that is not always evident to the general public. All right, staff, thank you. Merry Christmas to you. John did a good job tonight. Thank you. Everybody, hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas, and I'm certain that whatever Christmas we experience personally will probably be better than most of us deserve. So, and there will be a whole lot of people out there a lot less fortunate, as Mr. Burks was just talking. So, thank you. We're adjourned.
Where did these come from? These are nice.
You can thank Mayor Gerald. Mayor Gerald bought them years ago for something.
And we found them.